So if anybody has been kind of working on internet type of activities since the beginning, over the years you've probably seen significant capabilities increase as far as spam filters are concerned. Remember back in like the mid-90s or whatever, it was like you just could not get away from it. And then what they started to do is they started to apply kind of heuristics to what types of things that they were seeing. There were kind of telltale signs about the messages that were coming in, you know, massive misspellings or coming from specific domains, or the way in which it was relayed between different SMTPs, gateways, and so forth. So there was a lot of different things that were done in order to be able to do that. So spam can also include other messages, you know, SMS, as well as messaging applications that are voice in nature. So a lot of times you want to try and filter those out as well. A couple of different things to keep in mind as you look through the book. They'll talk about a number of really important methods by which they get rid of spam. So you can do a couple of things. You can do a domain blacklist or a whitelist. Which one do you think would be most effective if we just looked at that as a solution to spam? Okay, so tell me why you think a blacklist would be.
Oh, I guess probably not, because you don't know what it is yet.
Okay. So that would be called what we call the whack-a-mole solution, right? Every time you see it, blacklist it, blacklist it, blacklist it. Whitelisting, what winds up happening then is you'll initially put a group of folks that are going to be allowed in there in terms of domains and, you know, who's coming in. And then over time, what's going to wind up happening, people are going to call up and they're going to say, hey, you know, I'm getting blocked on this thing. Can you add me? And then by the time you know it, it's only going to be the organizations you really want to be getting traffic from. Okay? So that's a capability that you can use in order to prevent spam. Content filters. Once again, there's been a lot of work over the years done on statistical content filters, where they're looking directly at the messages and trying to do statistics to determine if this definitely is spam or not. And it's actually surprisingly good. And that's probably why you've noticed over the years, if you have Yahoo or Gmail or any of these other ones, you don't see it really as much anymore. Okay, if you do look into your trash, though, you'll notice that they do get redirected to the trash pretty effectively. Okay, one other one that's kind of a neat thing is SMTP connection delay. So what will happen is before a message is allowed to be sent forward, most of the time a legitimate email message will have a amount of time or a back off before it sends a message. But with a spam message, generally the message is just flooded immediately. So if it detects that the moment it opens up the connection that the traffic is immediate, then they know it's spam. If it takes a little bit of a back off and then they send it in 100 milliseconds or whatever the number is, then they know that it's a legitimate email message. And so that's a very interesting one that has been used throughout the years.
It seems like they could apply that to like the denial of service.
So some of the software tools have a capability that's like that, but for the most part, if it's really determined denial of service type of thing, really the best thing that you can do is have those load balancers making sure that your traffic is kind of spread out so it doesn't completely overwhelm a particular server. So we'll actually talk more about that here in a moment. Okay, so last thing, or one of the next things that we'll talk about is this concept of being able to tunnel your traffic. So keep in mind that this could be used for both legitimate and nefarious reasons as well. And tunneling essentially is just what? Anybody just have an idea of what we're talking about when we're talking about tunneling traffic? Okay, so you have that traffic, so everything you said was correct, but what's the one thing that needs to be added in there? Yeah, so that encrypted mechanism in between. Now anybody coming from outside that attempts to be a man in the middle to see what's going on is only going to see that encrypted traffic generated. Okay, so VPNs utilize this capability. They utilize different encryption mechanisms, point-to-point tunneling protocol. There are other ones that are, SSH you may be familiar with, but we'll talk about a couple of those mechanisms moving forward here. Good. Yeah, so that's another one, and we'll talk. You guys are already familiar with both the transport and the tunneling mode of IPsec. So that's very good.